200,000 years ago, every human on Earth lived within a few hundred miles of each other in East Africa. Every person alive today, no matter what they look like or where they're from, traces back to that one region. And for a huge stretch of time, nobody left. So what actually pushed people out, and what happens in the version of history where that push never comes? The obvious answer sounds simple. Humans are naturally curious, so eventually someone was always going to wander far enough to end up somewhere else. That's mostly wrong. Curiosity doesn't explain migration on this scale. Something specific had to force it. Around 70,000 years ago, Africa went through severe droughts. Ancient lake beds and pollen samples show entire regions turning from grassland to desert within a human lifetime. Food sources people had depended on for tens of thousands of years started disappearing. This wasn't a slow, comfortable nudge outward. It was pressure that forces movement because staying put stops being an option. Here's the detail that rarely gets mentioned, and it's the key to this whole alternate timeline. Genetic evidence suggests the migration out of Africa wasn't some massive, unstoppable wave. It looks like it came down to a surprisingly small group, in some estimates just a few thousand people, crossing into Arabia through a narrow land bridge near the Red Sea. Every non-African person alive today, over 7 billion people, descends from that one small group. Which means the fork point is smaller and more fragile than most people assume. If that group had failed, if the drought hit a season earlier, if the crossing had gone differently, there's a real chance the migration collapses entirely and no one leaves for a very long time. So picture that alternate world. Humanity stays contained to Africa for possibly tens of thousands of years longer. Agriculture emerged independently in multiple regions around the world, roughly 10 to 12,000 years ago, largely because isolated populations hit the right conditions at different times. Remove the populations in Europe, Asia, and the Americas entirely, and you remove several of those independent agricultural revolutions along with them. Fewer starting points, slower compounding progress. There's a stranger consequence, too. When humans finally did leave Africa, they didn't arrive in empty land. Neanderthals were already established across Europe and Asia, alongside a lesser-known group called the Denisovans. Modern humans interbred with both. Most non-African people today carry measurable Neanderthal DNA. If humans never leave, none of that interbreeding happens, and Neanderthals and Denisovans likely continue on their own path for tens of thousands of years more, since the leading theory for their extinction involves absorption into the arriving human population. Push ahead further, and the geography of civilization looks unrecognizable. The river valley civilizations that gave us writing and law, the Nile, the Tigris and Euphrates, the Indus, the Yellow River, depended on populations already being present in those regions thousands of years earlier. Delay human arrival by tens of thousands of years, and there's no ancient Egypt as we know it, no Mesopotamia, possibly no written language for a very long time, since writing emerged from the specific administrative pressures of large, settled populations, not curiosity alone. And there's a genetic twist closer to home. African populations today actually carry more overall genetic diversity than the rest of the world combined, precisely because everyone else descends from that one small founding group that left. In a world where nobody leaves, that pattern likely reverses entirely. We like to imagine human expansion across the planet as something inevitable, written into our nature from the start, but the actual evidence looks far more fragile than that. It looks like a small group of people pushed out by a drought they didn't choose, crossing a narrow strip of land they didn't know led anywhere. Every language, every civilization, every person reading this right now exists because that one crossing succeeded. It didn't have to.